desert night was a void, a black canvas stretched taut over the White Sands Missile Range near Holloman Air Force Base, New Mexico. March 1956. The air was brittle, sharp with the chill of early spring, and the only sounds were the faint hum of distant machinery and the occasional skitter of a lizard across the sand. Sergeant Jonathan P. Lovette, a young Air Force enlisted man, stood beside his superior, Major William Cunningham, on a remote stretch of the proving grounds. Their assignment was routine: collect debris from a recent missile test, catalog it, and return to base before dawn. The beam of their Jeep's headlights cut a narrow path through the darkness, illuminating dunes that seemed to pulse with secrets. Lovette, wiry and alert, scanned the ground with a flashlight, his breath visible in the cold. Cunningham, older and more seasoned, moved methodically, marking coordinates on a clipboard. The two men worked in silence, their footsteps crunching softly, the vastness of the desert swallowing any echo. They were alone, or so they thought. The night had a weight to it, a stillness that pressed against their skin, as if the desert itself were holding its breath. Cunningham paused, squinting into the distance. A faint glow, unnatural and amber, flickered beyond a low ridge. "You see that?" he muttered, his voice low, as if afraid to disturb the silence. Lovette followed his gaze, his flashlight beam trembling slightly as it swept toward the light. The glow pulsed, then vanished, leaving only darkness. "Probably just a flare," Lovette said, but his voice lacked conviction. The desert was a place of mirages, of things that weren't what they seemed, and both men knew it. They resumed their work, but the air felt heavier now, charged with an unspoken tension. Lovette knelt to pick up a twisted piece of metal, his fingers brushing the cold sand. That's where he heard it, a low, guttural sound, like the rasp of scales against stone. He froze, his heart thudding in his chest. The sound came again, closer, from the shadows just beyond the Jeep's light. "Major," he whispered, his voice barely audible. Cunningham turned, his hand instinctively moving to his sidearm, but he saw nothing. The desert was empty, the night unbroken. "Stay sharp," Cunningham said, his eyes darting to the ridge where the glow had appeared. Lovette nodded, but his grip tightened on the flashlight, its beam now a lifeline in the dark. They moved closer together, their steps deliberate, as if the ground itself might betray them. The rasping sound returned, louder, more insistent, circling them like a predator sizing up its prey. Lovette's pulse raced, his senses straining to pierce the blackness. Something was out there, something that didn't belong. Without warning, a piercing shriek tore through the night, high and unearthly, like the cry of a wounded animal but wrong, twisted. Lovette stumbled back, his flashlight clattering to the ground. Cunningham drew his pistol, shouting, "Lovette, get to the Jeep!" But before Lovette could move, a shape emerged from the darkness, a towering, sinuous form, its silhouette jagged against the starless sky. It was tall, over 7 feet, its body sleek and reptilian, covered in glistening, dark green scales that shimmered like oil. Its eyes, yellow and slitted like a viper's, locked onto Lovette, unblinking, filled with a cold, alien intelligence. Lovette froze, his breath caught in his throat. The creature moved with terrifying speed, its clawed limbs slicing through the air. From its back, tentacle-like appendages unfurled, writhing and snapping like whips. One of them lashed out, wrapping around Lovette's waist with a sickening crunch. He screamed, a raw, desperate sound that echoed across the dunes. Cunningham fired his pistol, the shots ringing out in the night, but the bullets seemed to glance off the creature's scales, useless as pebbles against stone. "Lovette!" Cunningham roared, lunging toward his comrade. But the creature was already moving, dragging Lovette into the air as if he weighed nothing. The sergeant's screams grew fainter, his body thrashing against the tentacle's grip. Cunningham ran after them, his boots sinking into the sand, his flashlight beam jerking wildly. The creature vanished over the ridge, Lovette's cries fading into the distance. Then from the sky, a blinding light erupted, an amber glow, pulsating and otherworldly, accompanied by a deep, resonant hum that vibrated in Cunningham's chest. He staggered the crest of the ridge, his lungs burning, and saw it. A craft, disc-shaped and massive, hovering silently above the desert floor. Its surface was smooth, metallic, reflecting the amber light in waves. The creature, still clutching Lovette, moved toward the craft, its movements fluid and deliberate. Lovette's body hung limp now, his screams silenced, his flashlight dangling from his belt, casting a weak, erratic beam across the sand. The craft's light intensified, and in an instant both the creature and Lovette were gone, swallowed by the glow. The craft rose, soundless, and shot into the sky, leaving only a faint shimmer in its wake. Cunningham collapsed to his knees, his pistol slipping from his hand. The desert was silent again, the night as empty as before. He stayed there, staring at the spot where Lovette had vanished, until the first rays of dawn crept over the horizon. His mind reeled, struggling to process what he had seen. A creature that defied reason, a craft that mocked the laws of physics and the loss of the man under his command. He knew no one would believe him, but he had to report it. He had to try. Hours later, Cunningham stumbled back to Holloman Air Force Base, his uniform torn, his face ashen. He recounted the incident to his superiors, his voice steady despite the horror in his eyes. The base commander listened in silence, his expression unreadable. A search was organized, and for 3 days, military personnel scoured the White Sands missile range, combing the dunes for any sign of Sergeant Lovette. They found nothing, no footprints, no blood, no debris from the craft. It was as if Lovette had never existed. On the 4th day, a report came in from a patrol near the Jornada del Muerto, a desolate stretch of desert 30 miles from the incident site. They had found a body, or what was left of it. Cunningham was called to identify the remains. What he saw would haunt him for the rest of his life. The body was Lovette's, but it was no longer human. His skin was gray, drained of all color, as if every drop of blood had been siphoned from his veins. His eyes were gone, replaced by empty sockets. His tongue had been removed, and his internal organs, heart, lungs, liver, were missing, extracted with a precision no human surgeon could match. The cuts were clean, almost surgical, with no sign of bruising or tearing. Most chilling of all, the body bore strange, circular marks, like the imprint of suction cups, across the torso and limbs. Cunningham stood over the remains, his stomach churning. The desert sun beat down, relentless, but he felt cold, as if the warmth had been sucked from his bones. The official report listed Lovette's death as an accident, attributing it to exposure and wild animal predation. Cunningham was ordered to remain silent, threatened with court-martial if he spoke of what he had seen. The incident was classified, buried in a file marked Project Blue Book, and forgotten by all but those who knew the truth. Years later, William Bill English, a former Green Beret and intelligence analyst, would claim to have reviewed a classified report on the incident. Stationed at a secret RAF base in England, English stumbled across the document in a restricted archive. It detailed Cunningham's account and the gruesome discovery of Lovette's body, describing the creature as a reptilian humanoid and the craft as an unidentified aerial phenomenon. English was shaken by what he read, convinced that the military was hiding evidence of extraterrestrial contact. He shared the story with a select few, risking his career to expose what he believed was a cover-up. The desert kept its secrets, as it always had. The sands of white sand shifted, erasing any trace of that March night in 1956. But for those who knew the story, the image lingered. A towering, scaled figure with yellow eyes, its tentacles coiled in the dark, and a craft that vanished into the sky, taking Sergeant Jonathan P. Lovette with it. The truth, if it was the truth, lay buried somewhere in the dunes, waiting for the day when the desert would speak.